So in this lecture, I'm going to show you guys how our final project was built step by step. Let me start by using our PHP tags, of course, because we're using PHP code. So the first thing we do is we create a class called employee. So I wrote a comment here, and right here, this is where I'm declaring our employee class. So everything within the employee class is what we're going to do next. Within our employee class, I went ahead and declared and set up some constants. And remember, a constant is pretty much just a value that cannot be changed or reassigned once it's been initialized with a first time value. So again, I'm going to use some constants here that doesn't change throughout the program. So I have manager, assistant manager, worker, wages for manager, and our wages for our assistant manager and our worker. So again, I set up some class constants that we can use. And for our attributes was the second step. So after I declared our constants, I'm declaring some attributes that relate to a real life employee. So as I said again, I'm using first name, last name, status, user ID, pay rate, and the hours worked. And I'm using our visibility feature or our access modifier as protected, just in case if our future programmers in the future want to inherit our features from our class, they can do that, because again, with the visibility feature of protected, it's allowed to be inherited by any other child classes as well, and it can't be called outside the class. So our next step after we set up our employee attributes is we declare a constructor by default. So I went ahead and made it public so we can actually create public objects outside of the class. And I want to pass in all of our attributes and initialize them once we create our object. So I'm initializing all of the attributes that are connected to our employee object. So we give it, of course, a first name, last name, my status, my user ID, the pay rate, and the hours worked. So again, our constructor, once we create our new objects, we want to initialize immediately our class object attributes, which we have here in this section within our constructor as well. And again, you guys can name, you guys can use any kind of names, and the pay rate and hours worked as well. You guys can play around with it. Just make sure that it works in our demo or in our final project. So once we do that, we actually can call our get employee info. And again, with our get employee info function, it just prints out all of our information that we set up our values to. So again, we use our constructor to initialize all of our attributes, and we can spit out all of the assigned values and some useful information to our web page by calling our get employee info method or function. So once we do that, that takes care of our class. You see how easy that is? We just declared some constants, some attributes, a constructor to create objects and initialize our attributes, and a basic function to give us our results. So once we do that, again, we're using our echo keyword to display information to our HTML page. And you guys can take a look at this. For example, I'm using this keyword or the special pointer because we're referencing something towards the object. So again, our object is going to contain all of these attributes. And once we do that, if we look on line 47, this is where I want you guys to do the math calculation. So it's going to grab the hours worked from your specific object you created, and it's going to multiply it by the pay rate, and that's how we get the paycheck before tax, and we can use a H4 HTML header as well. You don't have to, but it just looks good. So after we're done with the employee class, we can use a title to display. And after that, we can create new objects as well. So right here, oh, I'm so sorry guys. So of course, when we're creating unique objects, we want to make sure we give them different names. So I'll name it employee 1, employee 2, and employee 3 as well. So if we look at line 58, we use our new keyword because we're creating a new object of the class employee, and look at the information we pass it. So of course, if we look at our constructor, we want the first name and then the last name. So first name, last name in the order. And our status, so the status is going to be the manager. And the next piece of information, the unique ID. And as we can see, we're calling our class constants, not a constant from an object or a variable from an object. We're using our class constants. As we can see here, we have our class name followed by our semicolon, double semicolon operator to call a class constant. Our status is going to have the manager, and then our unique ID, which is 521. And for our wages, we're going to get the wages for the manager, which is set by our constant, and the hours worked. So once you guys do that, you guys can set up your other employees, and you can set up how many employees you want, but normally I just did 3 for the project. So again, this is how the final project was built and how it should look. But if you want to pass in different values for your first name, last name, you know, it could be Bob, Clark, Harold, Williams. Doesn't make a difference as long as your output is pretty much, it syncs up and it works as well. That's pretty much it. And I hope you guys have fun with the project, and let me know if you have any questions.